These are getting stranger and stranger to schedule, I got to tell you. So it is the weekend now, second weekend, and I'm still drinking my coffee. If you're on YouTube, you can see this. But the kids are out at the park with my husband. I'm able to find 20 minutes to sink into this. And coming off of yesterday's crazy energetic high, I've had a few more downloads. And this is what happens when you get into motion. I don't care what your human design is. I don't care what your astrological sign is or what your Enneagram is or anything. Every human being develops clarity through motion. It's just a matter of velocity and comfort and your ability to stay in the moment and aware. And so very much that is true for me. And by the way, because it's the weekend, I'm making this up as we go. We are going to pull from the deck again because we did this a week ago. So let's see what the deck does for us this week. But before we get into that, I just want to share some personal revelations with you. And this concept of initiation is what's coming through for me right now. Because it's been very easy for me to give into this narrative. We're talking about the advantage of tapping into narrative. That's the whole purpose of this podcast. Sometimes I think it's the purpose of my life. It's been very easy for me to give into this narrative that I'm scattered, that I'm flailing, that everything is falling through the cracks. And I could say, what am I doing? I'm running a company, but instead now I'm like podcasting every day and putting it up on YouTube and so on and so forth. I'm taking more long walks during the day. I'm actually adding into my training regimen leading into the winter. So I'm like training for 75 to 90 minutes a day now. Like, what am I doing? Why am I not out there pounding the pavement, doing business development more? I should be doing that. And there's that phrase, like when you hear yourself say should, it's like, don't should all over yourself. And what I've realized is that me as a leader, myself, is that I am crossing over right now, this whole series, and you're feeling it in real time. If you've been following along, you are feeling this. What is happening is an initiation. And it's that I am crossing over this invisible line that I think I drew for myself between knowing my brilliance and knowing my genius in specifically communications strategy, but that is an umbrella term for marketing, positioning, sales and marketing communications. They are like the trifecta that you need. Knowing my genius in all of those areas and then trying to make it marketable. It's so funny. It's like the cobbler's kids have no shoes. And I sense deeply that there are a lot of you who are like this too, that you're standing at this threshold and you're like, I know my stuff. And yet it's so easy for me to feel like I'm flailing and failing in the act of trying to make it marketable. And it's the most uncomfortable threshold you can be at. Trust me, because I've been here multiple times throughout the decade that has been my entrepreneurial journey. But what's particular about now is that I genuinely sense that the old rules do not work anymore. The rules that we were playing, the rule book that we had 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, like does not work anymore. And what's super uncomfortable is that this is happening on the personal level. Who we were during the time of 2020 to 2022 is not who we are now. I can say that I'm almost certain for every human being on earth. But it's also at the macro scale where the market we were functioning in then is not the market that we are in now. And the challenge is that we know this. And yet the new reality has not fully revealed itself yet. So we're trying to make ourselves marketable in a world that is still super unclear. And that is making this particular threshold moment so uncomfortable. So, from my personal perspective, here's what I feel is that like I have built a mastery in communications consulting, in mentoring, and in working with businesses, small, medium, and large. In fact, I have done all. And I am able to command significant retainers for consulting and for coaching. And I know that. And yet, what I don't want to do is go out into the world with my old playbook, but this new knowledge. So I'm feeling super restless now because I don't want to make money the old way and then bring myself as the new version of myself into that. It's very uncomfortable. And if you're picking up what I'm putting down, you're probably like, oh my gosh, Erin, this is yes, right? There's a restlessness because we are outgrowing our old container. All the work that I've now done in somatics, I feel like the most complete version of myself ever. And I look back at myself 2-3 years ago and I'm like, wow, you were really high functioning and really successful. And yet you were missing a huge piece of the pie. And now that I see it, I can't go back to only operating with that small, incomplete amount. So really where I find myself, I said this was going to be hugely personal, and it is that I feel kind of stuck between part of me wants to operate as that consultant where I'm focusing on, the metrics, the targets, the biz dev, just the activity. That's what we talked about yesterday. The launching. I can't tell you how many responses I got from folks to the Embodied Visibility Lab where they're like, well, when you launch it, tell me. And I'm like, I don't want to launch it. I've launched a whole bunch of things. And that is like the worst energy for me to be in. I want to do this so differently that it's completely not even recognizable as a launch. Because I am done with that. This is me being like, nope, ain't gonna happen. If that's what you expect to have happen, sorry, you're going to be hugely disappointed because that playbook for me feels stale. But here's the thing. So I said, like, I feel part of me is still operating in that, like, there is still that lizard brain being like, oh, you should sit down Canva for 3 hours and make a whole bunch of Instagram story canvases and a whole bunch of carousels for Instagram and like launch this and write. Oh, that lizard brain is there. But I'm going to override her. And I might crash and fail. This might not work. Because there's this other part of me, though, that I want to indulge. And it's the part of me that is still birthing. And I think it's the same for you guys. You don't want the old playbook. And yet you're birthing this thing and you're stuck in the middle. Like it's in the birth canal. And you're like, oh, I can't go back now. It's going to come out. But this really sucks right now. Yes, it does. When you are in the middle at a threshold moment, you're moving from one identity to another. The other thing that's going to happen is that productivity is going to disguise itself as safety. So I have noticed that in myself. I am filling my time. And yet I'm questioning, is this productivity? But every time I do that, I try to do something I wouldn't have done previously. So the old version of me, productivity would have been sitting down with the Canva and creating all the things and launching and working on the launch plan and working on this. And then I'm like, wait a minute. Every time I have the urge to sit down and do that, I'm going to go like fold some laundry. I'm going to go tackle one of those little niggly projects in the house that has been bugging me for a while, like cleaning out the junk drawer. I'm not going to sit on Canva and do that. I'm going to embrace this birthing energy. The part of me that knows that I don't want to go back to selling the new energy using the old playbook. I am going to invite being on this threshold. And I think, if you're nodding to this, you're like, oh my goodness, yes. Just all you should do right now is take this as permission to do that. Take this as permission to do it differently than you would have before. If you realize that you were constantly seeking outward validation before, I'm going to go talk to LMNP before I make this decision and see what they think and just see what they think and then sit there with it and then try to interpret it and analyze. If that was you before, if that was your playbook from 2020 to 2022, 2023, just try doing something without asking anybody, seeing how it feels. You'll be sitting on your edge. You'll be rewriting that story. You'll be repatterning it. So that's what I'm doing. And what's so interesting to me too is that the initiation, the new message that's coming to me as I'm sitting in this discomfort of like, I do not want this to be the way it was before. I don't want my comms consulting to feel the way it was before. I don't want my production company to feel the way that it was before. I don't want any kind of container that I'm going to offer as a fun, safe group to emerge the way that it did before, out of pressure tactics and launching. What's so clear to me is that I actually just need to commit to that clarity. I don't need to commit to a strategy. And it's weird for me to say that, right? I just need to commit to holding the space for that container and letting everything else fall away. If I don't want to launch the traditional launch way, I just need to hold space for that reality to transpire. That's it. I need to catch my lizard brain. I also need to recognize that what actually might be happening as I cross this threshold, and for you too, is that instead of chasing results, which is what we were previously trained to do, what if we sunk into the reality that what we're doing is gathering data? And I'm feeling this with the Embodied Visibility Lab because, man, I threw that out there like a sample sale, and I'm like, well, who fits this size? What I've learned with this new offer is that this is going to just be an experiment. It's actually not even an offer. It's an experiment. And when I look at it that way, I'm like, cool. You can't fail at an experiment. You just end up with data at the end. Right? All of a sudden takes the heat out of this needing to be pressurized. It lets me cross that threshold. It lets me cross the threshold and initiate into this new, awesome. Here's what I learned from this experiment. Can I sell something to folks using essentially what's a Google Doc, a really solid idea, a really clear transformation kind of pathway that is also based on an experiment? Because here's the other thing I know. When you put people in a room like that for 8 weeks, things are going to happen that you're not anticipating. So I'm not going to guarantee exactly what's going to happen. No. I'm going to lay it out for you. Here's the container. And this is what it is. Here's the experiment. I'm going to test and see if I don't have to launch that way. And then what will happen on the other side of that is I'll have proven to myself exactly what I set out to prove to myself, which is that was an experiment. Here's what I learned. I still don't have to go back to that old tactic. So I think today, really what this transmission is about is standing on not the edge, but recognizing that part of that is also straddling a threshold between knowing your genius and trying to make it marketable. And when we look at that second half of that phrase, trying to make it marketable, instead of a playbook and more of an experiment, that's where you can start to sink into safety instead of sinking into pressure. This is an experiment that I am endeavoring. And no matter what, on the other side, I will have data. It might be emotional data. It might be physical data. It might be data. Depends on what you're doing. You need commitment to that clarity. So with that, let's pull a card. Sound good? This is the exact same deck. And so I think the question we're going to ask today is, I actually didn't think about this before I decided to shuffle. What is the question that we want to ask right now? Well, let's just sink into an energy instead of asking a clear question. Let's just sink into what is it that we need to embrace when we are aware that we are being initiated. when we are aware that we are on the edge, when we are aware of our genius, and yet the path forward is still so unclear. And I'm saying this for myself because I am sitting here trying to make a lot of decisions, and I'm feeling, what do I do in 2026 with my comms consulting? Do I take a few opportunities that have presented themselves? All have merit, all have some drawbacks. Do I continue to push the envelope with SSN, or do I just keep it boutique and, give it a ceiling and let it hit that ceiling every year and just be cool with that and have it just kind of run itself? Or do I try to grow it again when trying to grow it the first time nearly ended me? Oh, I feel like we got a jumper there. I'm going to take that one. Okay. Oh, this one is going to make me emotional because this is the card that I pulled the day I went into labor with my daughter, the day that I almost died. And this was the card that saved me. And I couldn't have planned this. I said, there's a point when you're birthing a baby, when they're in the birth canal, and you can't turn back. No matter what happens, no matter how much blood you lose, you have to sink in and you have to trust that you're going to come out the other side with something amazing. And she's one of the most amazing things that's ever happened to me. But I had to dig deep and feel her in that literal birth canal and save us both with nothing but my alignment and my self-belief. We talked about cultivating your internal validation first. When she was born, I couldn't hear the doctors. I couldn't feel anything in the room. All I could feel what was happening inside of me, in my own spirit, in my own soul. And I believe that that is what saved us both that day. I will take my dying breath knowing that it was my internal source that came through me that day to save us. It was what initiated us over the threshold. And this is the card I pulled just hours before my water broke. So I'm going to share it with you now. And if you're watching on YouTube, I'm sorry because I am really starting to tear up. But the card is, I can decide today to recalibrate my energy and commit to love and joy. I can decide today to recalibrate my energy and commit to love and joy. We can commit to that clarity, that one clear thing. And there is nothing more clear than love and joy. And we can commit to forgiving ourselves and dropping everything else that does not allow us to achieve that. For me, right now in this moment, it's quote unquote launching. For me, it's right in this moment, not pounding my LinkedIn DMs with meeting requests to try to drum up and force business out of pressure instead of out of flow. For me right now, it feels like allowing the narrative to emerge that should and productivity are two very loaded phrases, and that I am being productive when I'm folding the laundry, and I am being productive when I am exercising my body, and I am being productive when I walk the dog by the ocean, and I let my energy actually become present in my body before doing a podcast like this. When I commit to love and joy, I show up as my full self and amazing things can happen. You can overcome death. That's what I did 5 years ago. The last time I pulled this card. I will leave it here for today. I appreciate you, and we'll be back tomorrow.